Hot mic.
Hot mic. Hot route.
What sport is this again? Lacrosse?
This is
Cycling?
hockey, actually. You didn't know? We're doing a deep dive on the Edmonton Oilers.
Oh,
Yeah, what the heck? What's up, everybody? Thanks for hanging out here with us for the next half hour or so. Adam Kaufman, Geoff, Ulrich. We have got the JockMKT NBA Show. We're going to dive deep into what is a robust 13-game slate in the association tonight. And, you know, really, it's just great to be able to refocus Moose a little bit, to pull him away from Twitter and all the blasting of the journalists in Canada that he is doing right now, and allow him to just focus solely on NBA basketball. How are you?
I'm doing great. Great. Glad we're talking basketball. Not sure why you brought that up, but sure.
It really was quite a thing. I would love to spend the next 30 minutes talking about that, but I suppose it is not in the best interest of our viewers. So, as usual, if you have any questions, thoughts, concerns, constructive criticisms, it doesn't matter. You don't even need to be all that nice. Just, you know, give us something that we're able to read, and we will happily do so. We thank you, like I said, for being here with us. And as I mentioned, we've got a lot of games, a lot of action to cover. JockMKT, of course, works a little bit differently, this platform, than, you know, if you're playing across one of the daily fantasy, you know, set it and forget it, lineup locking, late swaps, all that stuff. You can react to the news as it is happening. Buy shares of guys, $1 up to $25. If there's somebody you think sitting here this afternoon is going to be really great tonight, go ahead, invest in them. If you want to wait, see how the game is trending, see if somebody gets hurt, invest in somebody who obviously is thrust into a better position, not unlike what happened in Detroit last night, where Killian Hayes disappears early, and then, you know, you get to take advantage of somebody else. By all means, do that. So however you want to react, it's your world. We're here to just kind of guide the ship and steer you through it as best we can. Moose, I always like to begin, as you know, with an overarching look at some of the studs. And obviously, with 13 games, with the better part of the NBA in action tonight, you've got a lot of guys available. Of course, no Kevin Durant for Brooklyn, but beyond that, man, Nick Jokic, LeBron James, of course, no Anthony Davis, as we know that's been the case for a little while. Giannis Antetokounmpo, Drew Holiday is a game-time decision. James Harden, Trae Young, DeJounte Murray, Joel Embiid, Luka Doncic, Karl Anthony Towns, John Morant, Domantas Sabonis, Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown, Rudy Gobert. The list goes on from there. That is only a fraction of them. But which ones of these are actually in great spots? I've got a handful that I think are worth looking at, but who stands out to you?
I mean, there's actually quite a few good spots tonight for the top players. It's just, obviously, we're talking about JockMKT, so we're not talking a traditional daily fantasy site where you've got to take the investing side into it. If all these guys are in good positions, then I feel like, you know, Nick Jokic is just going to be the guy most people pay up for. Now, that's fine. Nick Jokic is clearly the top play just in terms of projected fantasy points, but you're probably going to need him to finish first. He finished first in his last slate, and he got a 24% or 27% return on his ROI. Like, it's just not good enough. It's just not good enough. Like, we're not playing for enough upside if we're investing in Nick Jokic at those prices. And I think you're going to see another scenario where his stock is just too high. So I think that the Harden situation is very interesting with Durant out. And I feel like his IPO, because we've got all these other studs on the slate, it might not get too bad. So I think Harden is very interesting. You can realistically, though, I think you should be going down the board a little bit. Let the other people pay up for Nick Jokic and maybe even LeBron, guys who are going to need like top two finishes to really pay off. Whereas guys like Harden, maybe even a Joel Embiid doesn't get too popular either. I mean, Embiid's been really good. And even when he's been going for like sort of his fuller price, I mean, he's been pretty consistent. He kind of had a dud his last time out. I mean, a dud with 42 fantasy points, but yeah, for JockMKT, we need a top 5 finish, but he has had top 5 finishes in 3 of his last 6 starts. Actually, 4 of his last 6 starts. So again, like, the ROI is better there. We're getting 50% return on ROI with Joel Embiid versus paying up for a guy like Doncic. And I think you really need to be wary of that tonight.
So to me, it's more the pay down guys. And when I say pay down, again, that's all relative because we're still talking about studs. We're not getting into value mid-tier guys, kind of, as it relates to their
tier, but
fair
the cheaper,
IPO.
but the cheaper upper.
Exactly. So, the Trae Youngs, DeJounte Murray's, Karl Anthony Towns, John Morant, Rudy Gobert, those types of guys that are obviously considerably cheaper than some of the studs that you were outlining, but, seem like, to me, really logical pivots tonight.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm fine with that strategy. Obviously, like you don't have to pay up for any of the guys I mentioned. I mean, I kind of like Embiid and Harden and I can't remember if I threw someone else out there, but I kind of like Embiid and Harden, but it's not like they're necessary. I mean, you mentioned John Morant. I mean, been very consistent, probably going to get him for a little bit of a cheaper price. A lot of guys out on Memphis. I mean, I know the matchup isn't great, obviously, but there is a chance that just with all those guys out, I mean, he ends up playing a few more minutes and the game ends up being close. So there's opportunity out there for sure with this second range of guys. I mean, we can go game by game anyway if you want or whatever, but I don't really have necessarily one person over the other here to pick out among those guys. But it's certainly a night where I don't even know if you need to invest in the top 5 players.
Some of the upper echelon, of course, that Geoff was outlining before. I mean, Nick Jokic, his projection right now, based on what we've got in our Awesemo site, and of course, tools that are available to you. You just got to pay for them. But again, try them out for a week. Very, very cheap, worth your while. Jokic projected for right around 56 points. His fair IPO right now is just shy of $18. LeBron James, who's technically a game time decision, but he's a game time decision every single game. Expect him out there. He's projected for about 50 points, same as Giannis. Their fair IPO right around $14 as well. Again, these are the projections. As far as things, where they stand right now, Jokic right around $14 is fair value, projected for about $57 points, but north of 50 for James, Giannis, for Gobert, for Embiid, for Harden. They're all projected for north of 50 points on Jock Market at this moment on the Jock Market website. I guess that's what makes, Gobert kind of interesting to me, in particular. And of course, he's coming off a pretty good outing. His fair IPO price right around $11.50 at the moment, projected for right about $52. He is, or 52 points, pardon me. He's a top 5 guy at the moment. And again, sort of that next level off of those guys that we were talking about, but even still finding himself in the top 5. Is that somebody that you'd be more inclined with right now going up against Houston?
Yeah, I mean, it all depends on price. Again, we're talking about Jock Market. We're not talking about just daily fantasy, where we're just dealing with a little bit of chalk. It's how high does this get up? Because this isn't sneaky. I mean, they're going up against the Houston Rockets. It's an amazing game environment. But it really comes down to price. I mean, he's just, even in the Jock Market, like fair value, it looks like he's ranked 4th. We have him ranked, up there, but it's not like super, with where he kind of is maybe going. I mean, I don't know if his projection is necessarily that good that you want to be paying like higher prices than normal for Rudy Gobert. Mm-hmm. And I think on a slate like this, there's just too many better options. So, Gobert is a player I feel just be too popular tonight. And I mean, yeah, it's a great spot. He's coming off a good night, but you have to think about your return on Jock Market. Like if Gobert's IPO gets up there, I mean, you're going to need like a top 3 night. And this, the Jazz are favored by 13.5. You've got blowout concerns. So I just think there's a few better targets in Gobert, and he's probably going to be it's going to be like one of those crowded trade kind of things where everyone's trying to get a piece.
Well, and obviously a big part of the reason is because who else do they have? And I know there are some other options there for the Jazz, but Donovan Mitchell's out. Hassan Whiteside is out. Whiteside in COVID protocols. Of course, Mitchell dealing with a concussion right now. And Utah on the other side, or Houston on the other side, pardon me, actually fully healthy. There's, aside from the John Wall situation, everybody's available there for the Rockets. And this is a game that is projected for, even though it's projected to be lopsided, like you were saying, it's projected for north of 230 points right now. So I think it's a good game to start with in terms of which guys might be appealing for you. We can naturally start on that Utah side, because I just think beyond Gobert, there are so many appealing guys. I mean, it's virtually that entire lineup, Geoff. I mean, the guys who stand out the most, it's Mike Conley, it's Jordan Clarkson, Joe Ingles, who took him a while to get going last time out. But even still, even that next level of guys, again, Gobert, I think, is a really good play. Rudy Gay, Royce O'Neal, Bojan Bogdanovic. Again, like you can basically, in this particular game for this team, you can rattle off anybody.
There's some really good plays for sure. I mean, yeah, and I don't want to be talking like you should avoid this. I was just talking about Gobert in kind of a vacuum and what he, when his price gets up. There's some really good plays from the sense that too, like these guys are going to be cheap and they've got a massive floors because A, the matchup is great, and B, they're going to be playing. Like you mentioned, Royce O'Neal. I like investing in a guy like this tonight. Yeah, I mean, he's lost. He's returned negative returns in 2 of his last 5 games, but those negative returns haven't been huge. Like you're not losing your shirt with like a mediocre game from Royce O'Neal, even if he is priced up a bit, because he's going to be playing 32 plus minutes, and that's what he's been doing. And he's also had positive ROIs in 3 of his last 5 games, and he's actually hit a ceiling game recently too. So with that many minutes, again, we're not talking about like an elite fantasy producer, but we are talking about a guy who's going to be playing a ton in a great game environment. It could be a situation where he just, ends up getting hot or something and ends up putting a few more points. I like Jordan Clarkson probably the most of anyone on Utah. Again, with Donovan Mitchell out, I think that you've got to look at who it benefits the most. And I mean, Clarkson has to be up there just in terms of pure usage. I guess if the game develops into a bit of a blowout, maybe that hurts his upside, but I don't even know. Cause like their bodies are obviously they're down a little bit just in terms of rotation. So this is a night where you should be investing in Utah players. I just feel like from a jock market perspective, it's better value you're getting. It's just better returns, I think, that you're going to get by looking to guys like O'Neal and maybe Clarkson, maybe even a guy like Rudy Gay here. So yeah.
Flip side here for Houston, though, not nearly as appealing. It really is just it's the Utah side in this matchup. You got obviously like Christian Wood and Kevin Porter Jr. and Jayshawn Tate, guys like that who Eric Gordon. I inconsistently feel good about those guys depending on their spots. I just don't think any of those guys are in particularly good spots in this matchup with everything, especially everything that we outlined on the other side available for Houston or for Utah. You could pay down, look at like Alperen Şengün, as we talk about him every once in a while. KJ Martin is another maybe appealing play, but none of the pricier guys, to the extent that Houston even has any, really jump out, which I guess in some ways sort of worries me, in that if this game, like you said, the line set at 13.5 points. So if this thing really gets out of hand, if it turns into a blowout, I guess that's the beauty of jock market. You can take advantage of which guys wind up being out there, largely in that second half, especially that fourth quarter when it's kind of garbage time, and maybe make a little money late in that action as long as you're following along and paying attention to it. But, if you were looking at it from I'm going to invest this afternoon and kind of just leave it and see what happens, you might be setting yourself up for failure.
Yeah, absolutely. I think there's some opportunity here. Again, not to be like a broken record, but it really does just come down to opportunity. Like what is the cost of taking a shot with some of these guys? I mean, I'm pretty interested in Kevin Porter Jr. I think in this spot. Again, I mean, you've got a player who's consistently seen his minutes go up a little bit over the last few games. He's actually been like well over a fantasy point per minute over his last 2 games too. I know those are against Sacramento, but you mentioned the garbage time situation, even just like the shorter rotation against Utah. Like I'm not necessarily down on the Rockets fantasy prospects in this game. We still have like a pretty big point total as well. So yeah, Rockets definitely, I mean, you don't need to go crazy. I mean, I think that you take like maybe your favorite target from this game, which would probably be Porter Jr. and go. But I think there is an opportunity for someone on Houston to potentially have a big night because, again, you mentioned those garbage time minutes. I mean, somebody's probably, someone's like, unless we get like a 50-point blowout, then somebody's probably going to be putting up some points for Houston. So,
folks, if you want to get access to all the great Awesemo Plus tools and content from nearly every DFS sport available to you, use the Awesemo Plus weekly pass. It is $29.95. Again, that gets you access to every single sport, includes full access to all the premium content tools on Awesemo.com. A lot of great stuff, player projections, ownership projections, stuff that we're constantly talking about, the boom bust tool, lineup builder, fantasy cruncher, so much more than that as well. Of course, if you're only looking to play NBA DFS, or of course Jock market projections, you want to look at those for NBA, you can sign up, use our Awesemo Plus NBA package. That's just $4.95 a week. That's it. Not even $5. Play a head-to-head with a buddy, get your money back, and then go from there. Stop guessing, start winning. Use Awesemo Plus today. A lot of great tools that are available to you. So Geoff, as we keep on going here, again, there are 13 games there. We could go game by game, if we had the time. I think it's better to sort of hit on the key situations, and in particular, when it comes to investing and looking for a whole lot of production, that's the games that obviously stand out as having a whole lot of points coming their way. So Timberwolves and the Hawks, it's not on the surface a great game in the sense that neither team is particularly good, but you got an over-under right now of about 235.5. Clint Capella and Bogdan Bogdanovic. So we were talking about Bojan before. Bogdan, they are out for Atlanta. For Minnesota, it's just Jordan McLaughlin. So, everybody essentially available in this game with the exception of Capella of note. So you look at Atlanta, there are a bunch. Trae Young, I mentioned him earlier. He's in a really good spot. John Collins as well. Okongwu, especially with Capella out, it all of a sudden is elevated. He's in a great spot. You can look at DeAndre Hunter, Kevin Huerter, Danilo Gallinari, all these guys for Atlanta. It's sort of like the way we were talking about Utah. There are a lot of guys that stand out for the Hawks.
Yeah, absolutely. And this is a game, definitely much like the Utah situation. I mean, I think there's, I actually like Trae Young better than necessarily Gobert, I think, tonight. Although, I mean, both of them are in pretty good spots, but yeah, I just think that the upside with Trae Young is just better in this spot than Gobert. So, and I think realistically too, you're going to be able to get Trae Young at like better valuations than Gobert. So, Trae Young just looking again, he's had a couple bust games recently, but generally a player. And I think in this spot too, like I'd be pretty shocked if we got like a bad performance from Trae Young, like outside of an injury issue or something like that. I mean, I think this is a pretty safe spot for Trae Young, just in terms of the game environment and like what the Timberwolves give up defensively. So I really don't even, but we didn't really talk about him off the top, but I really don't even mind starting there. But I do think there's probably even better opportunity. Like DeAndre Hunter, it's got to be one of the best plays from this game. I think, you look at his recent usage, it's headed right in the right direction. The fantasy point per minutes have been going up well over a minute per game. Not well over a minute per game, but about a minute per game in his last couple contests as well. So, with the shorter rotation, the game environment here, like DeAndre Hunter is kind of definitely one of the guys I would be targeting there on Atlanta. I don't see any reason why this momentum that he's got going here and the usage would stop in this spot. I think I prefer him over Gallinari too. But there are like multiple players you can even use Gallinari with Hunter. But Kevin Huerter is you mentioned too. He's flashed some good upside and he's going to be out there playing big minutes too. So lots of ways you can go on Atlanta. With the Minnesota side, probably going to be a little bit more busy at the top, with like Towns and Edwards, but
yeah,
there's probably a potential for a couple plays down there. But I think Atlanta is
Beverly. He's a good option.
Sorry, who was that?
Patrick Beverly. He's a good
Beverly.
option. Timberwolves.
Yeah. Absolutely. I mean, the rotation. Like I was just about to say, like I like targeting the Atlanta side better in this game. Again, you've got to just figure in the rotation. But like Beverly is a player who, he's pretty much locked into like this 30-minute per night role, and it's kind of nice because it brings you a good floor, but then he does have these spike games and this is like the perfect type of environment. So yeah, I think Beverly is another player from this game environment that you should definitely be thinking about here. And I think on a night like tonight too, where, people just in the COVID environment, like people just forget that like he's a good player, like locked into really solid role.
So I wasn't necessarily going to spend all that much time on this Miami-Portland game, which is at 7:30 Eastern tonight, but we've got some news. Tyler Hero, in the last few minutes, it's been announced that he has entered health and safety protocols, so he is unavailable tonight. So that's no Hero, no Victor Oladipo, obviously, no Kyle Lowry, no Markieff Morris on the other side. Of course, still no Damian Lillard, Larry Nance, Cody Zeller, they're out. Dennis Smith, Norman Powell, and CJ Ellaby, they are game time decisions. So there are a lot of moving parts here in this game right now, although a little more certainty on Miami, which honestly, in these Wednesday shows that we've been doing, is not something we've had a lot of. It seems like every Wednesday we're talking about Miami, all these guys in COVID protocols or game time decisions, and it's a lot of, wait and see. If this transpires what we know right now, because there are no game time decisions, just the guys that I mentioned that are out, you can look at it and say, okay, now we have a better understanding of this game. Jimmy Butler, good spot. Gabe Vincent, Max Strus, good spots, especially with Tyler Hero out. Duncan Robinson, PJ Tucker. You could make the case. I don't love Bam Adebayo tonight, but obviously you could zero in on him a little bit if you want to as well. It would seem to me that aside from obviously Butler, because Jimmy Butler's always in play, Duncan Robinson with Tyler Hero down, becomes a guy that is very interesting to invest in.
Yeah, let's talk about Butler for a second. I mean, this is an interesting spot. Like, obviously the injury news with Hero is going to hit, and people are going to get more interested in Jimmy Butler, but I really wonder how popular he's going to be. Like, if you look at his Jock market returns, I think he's got 6 out of last 8 games negative ROI. I just wonder if that's going to keep people away a little bit. Like, he hasn't been the best ROI return sort of player to target in terms of shares when his IPO price has been like above $10. Now, that being said, I think this is fine to invest in him here. I think this is kind of a spot where you've got to take into account, like, this is just a completely different game environment than he's been playing in with Hero out. So yeah, this is a spot where, again, if the IPO stayed even at like 10 or 11, I think that he'd be a little bit underpriced. I mean, it's a good matchup too. Like, Portland, not good defensively. So I think Jimmy Butler definitely goes, up into that sort of realm of players for me, like even Harden and kind of up there. But we'll see you have to see what his IPO price is. I mean, people might sleep on this a little bit. I think it's a good target for tonight, but there's really good targets on both sides of the ball. You mentioned Duncan Robinson, absolutely, like another player. If you weren't interested in paying up for Jimmy Butler necessarily, I mean, I think that's fine. Take the guy who's going to see the most usage and the biggest bump from Hero being out. It's probably Duncan Robinson, or at least he's one of them. So he's been pretty good just in terms of his fantasy production. Little bit more productive or point reliant, but again, we got a Portland team here that really don't mind targeting players like that against. So yeah, I think for me in this game on the Miami side anyways, it's kind of like Butler. And then if I'm paying for anyone else on Miami, it's going to be a cheap player like a Struz or a Duncan Robinson. So yeah, interesting spot though with no Hero. Sorry, what was that?
He's sitting right around $7.30. And
you cut out. Sorry, mate.
What's that? Sorry,
you cut out. I literally.
Oh, okay. I was just saying, Jimmy Butler right now on the Jock market site is sitting around $7.30 is fair IPO price, and Duncan Robinson I'm actually not seeing at the moment. Whether I'm overlooking him or whether he's just not listed yet, but that seems unlikely. Well,
I mean, I was just gonna say, I think the other side of this, I mean, I think Jusuf Nurkic is actually in a pretty good spot. I mean, I think this matchup, I think it should be one where he gets pretty good run. I mean, I don't think that like we have to worry about him necessarily getting like run off the floor or something. So I don't even mind paying paying up on the other side of this one. You could get some cheap guys too from this game. Like, again, I mentioned Butler may go for a little bit less, but Nurkic could be a player who goes for a little bit less too.
So continuing on, because again, that's most recent news, obviously, with Tyler Hero. So we wanted to make sure we react to it. This Cavaliers Bulls game, I realized that the Bulls, the East leaders, they've struggled a bit, losses in 4 straight. There's no Zach LaVine right now. There's no Lonzo Ball. Alex Caruso is a game time decision at this moment. So as far as guys that jump out for you for Chicago, and just I want to make sure that I don't miss anyone, but I really don't see anybody. I know there's Vooch, there's DeRozan, like they're studs, Kobe White, guys like that, obviously, but I don't see anyone that's necessarily worth paying up for in this game, at least on that side of the ball. I'd have to look at Cleveland here too.
Yeah.
And maybe Kevin Love or CD Osman on Cleveland.
Yeah. On the Chicago side, I think it's like, I think Vukovic is pretty interesting.
Mm.
I mean, with Levine and Ball out, I mean, you've got to figure like the usage goes up. I mean, it don't have to figure. I think we do have, pretty good, idea that Vukovic is going to see a bit of a bump in usage here. And again, kind of a player like on a big slate where I just wonder if people are going to forget about him. I mean, again, it's Jock market. We're not necessarily worried about, ownership or anything. We just want the best deal. And I'm just trying to bring up his recent stats here. Of course I can't find him now. Oh, okay. There we go. But, a player who fairly consistent for Jock market usage. He's got a couple bust games in there, but I think he's the type of player I want to target tonight. Like, I'd rather get exposure to 3 players like Vukovic, who is in a bit better usage spot, with some stud players out on his team, and we'll potentially just be getting me a better, be available at a better price per share than some of these top players. So again, this all comes down to what price can you get these players at? Vukovic went for $11 over $11 in IPO in his last game. That was the first time he went for over $10 in like 10 games, and he busted. So I feel like it's going to keep some people off him, but he's had some big ROI games when he's been like around the $8 range. So if he's in that range tonight, I think this is a really good spot to target him personally.
The Nets Wizards game has another massive over under as well, 234 points. And of course, that's without Kevin Durant, Joe Harris, Nick Claxton, Paul Millsap. All those guys are out for Brooklyn. You've got DeAndre Bembry's game time decision. Washington fully healthy, no injuries, no going into that one. Starting on the Nets side, of course, Kyrie Irving is actually able to play in this one. James Harden, as we know, is projected for a big night. But would you make the case to, considerably pay down, get some shares of a guy like LaMarcus Aldridge in this game?
Yeah, maybe. This is another situation, much like the Utah situation with like Gobert, that I just worry, like, we're just going to get people piling into the Brooklyn studs. And, again, like they're certainly in good spots. They could produce top 5 games. There's a good chance like Harden will do that, but you just got to think about risk reward here. The trading and investing, it's all about risk reward. Our reward probably isn't going to be that big if everyone's piling into Harden and the IPO price is more expensive. So you look at a guy like Aldridge. This is a good game environment. So maybe we should be looking at other players too. And I think that, it's kind of like the idea that like a rising tide raises all boats. Well, the tide here of the Washington Wizards and the good matchup is going to raise some of these more scrubby Brooklyn players, right? So yeah, I like it. I think LaMarcus Aldridge is still a pretty solid fantasy producer. And this is definitely a spot where he could just have one of those productive nights, maybe get you 25, 30 points in like 20 minutes or something. So yeah, I like that call. I mean, people don't need to hear me talk about Harden and Kyrie Irving anyways. We know it's a better spot without Durant out. Again, we're not fooling anybody here. I think the other side of the ball is definitely more interesting for the higher price players. Like Kyle Kuzma is a player, I mean, I've been talking about on the weekends with like videos as well. I mean, this dude is just so consistent. I mean, the rebounds are there now. Like it's
just so unbelievable matchups. After all those years where he wasn't with the Lakers.
It's really crazy. I mean, I feel like people just don't talk about it enough after he was just made fun of about how terrible he was in the Lakers, and he was bad, right? But I don't think it's a bad spot again to target Kuzma. And I mean, like, let's just look quickly before we make that assertion. But I mean, where his fair price IPO is even what he's been going for. Been going for like under $8 most nights, and he's got like over 50% ROIs in 4 of those last 6 starts. And even his bust games aren't bad. Like, if this guy's going for under $8, just get exposure. I mean, like, you've got a pretty safe floor. You've got way better potential with the returns than paying up for the top guys. So yeah, I don't know, man. Maybe this is the night where like he goes for $12. Son, people finally start to pay attention, but the IPOs on him they've not been going for much. I don't know what it is or why, but
So before we go, because we have to in the next couple moments here, but we've gone over studs, we've gone, game by game to some of the key games of note, but some of the value guys that really jump out at you. And I'll name a few here because I know you'll name some more on top of that. Some we've already talked about. Like I said, the Utah game, we both talked about it. The Utah game is really interesting. So there's Mike Conley, there's Jordan Clarkson, Joe Ingles, guys like that. Mentioned LaMarcus Aldridge, obviously, DeAnthony Melton for Memphis as well, and he's going to be very popular tonight, but he's in a great spot. Okongwu for Atlanta without Capella. Some of these guys, you can make a case for Rashawn Holmes for Sacramento. Didn't really talk about that Kings and Pistons game, but beyond that, who do you really like that's a bit cheaper tonight?
So we didn't talk about the Memphis Grizzlies much. They are super thin. Brooks still out. A couple guys added to the health and safety. John Concher is interesting. He's been shooting really well from three. And again, I mean, like somebody on Memphis has to score the ball tonight. I mean, I get that it's like not the greatest matchup, but it's just such a short rotation that I think you can think about him. You mentioned Detroit. Yeah, I think there's some interesting plays there too. Again, that's actually a good game environment too for Detroit, right? So, going up against Sacramento, just going up and down their lineup a little bit. I mean, Trey Lyles, Corey Joseph could even be like sneaky. So I think there's some value plays there on Detroit that you're going to want to look at. And those two guys probably be the top two options there.
Our guy, Awesemo himself, Mike, our producer, is not only making sure that we're aware of the clock, but also reminding you guys in the Awesemo YouTube chat, hit the like, hit the subscribe button on the Awesemo YouTube page.
Smash
we greatly appreciate it. Smash it. Yeah. How long has it been since we told you to really beat the crap out of that like button? Just don't break your computer, but really hit the like. You got a lot more content coming your way, a lot more NBA over the course of the day today. I'll be back in just a couple hours with my guy, Greg Ehrenberg. We got 4:00, the Yahoo NBA Wednesday look ahead show. So again, 13 games. We'll go position by position, not so much game by game, but position by position, tell you the best Yahoo plays tonight after, of course, we covered all things Jock Market. Then at, 4:45 to 6, you got the NBA Deeper Dive, NBA Live Before Lock, 6 to 7:30, and then 8 to 9 PGA Live Before Lock tonight. So again, lot coming your way. And of course, as the week goes on, there will be football divisional round look ahead with 8 teams remaining in the NFL playoffs. But thanks to Mike again for doing all that he does. And of course, Geoff Ulrich, Moose, always a pleasure hanging out with him. I'm Adam Kaufman. Like I said, I'll see you in a couple hours. We appreciate everyone for hanging here with us. Hit the like on your way out the door. Moose, catch you soon, pal.
Yeah, man. Happy NBA night to everyone. It's always one of my favorite shows of the week, and good luck on the IPOs.